And then he looks at me and he goes, but I want to let you know, since I've been coming here, I don't have that problem anymore. And then he really starts crying and he goes, thank you so much for giving me my life back.
Wow.
I actually took my wife on a date last night for the first time in 20 years. And I feel like now I can move forward.
All right, Genesis Nation, welcome. And we're here to help you leverage technology and also leverage technology to create your dream practice and just bringing key opinion leaders and doers and influencers in this profession. And I have with me today Mr. Bharon Hoag, who is not only I don't want to call you an influencer like social media influencer, bro. You are just an influencer because of your energy, your experience, your wisdom. So I'm going to just get us started. I know your dog is with us today as well, looking for attention.
He's going to be bouncing around a little bit.
Kevin's here, and that's the beauty we get working from home. So Bharon, if you could just let's get started. Tell us your story, your chiropractic story, please.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you for the opportunity. It's always a pleasure. We obviously, I have a clinic in Columbus, Ohio, and we use Genesis. So we're huge fans of you guys and the work that you guys do. So I thank you again for this opportunity. Yeah. So I'm a bit of an anomaly. I'm not really in every regard you could possibly think. But I'm not a chiropractor. I'm celebrating my 26th year in chiropractic.
Amazing.
And I've served a lot of different capacities throughout the profession. Everything from started out as just a CA, working and helping our office, grow. We were David Singer clients at the time. For any of you that remember back in the day, David Singer had a large consulting company at the time. And so I really got thrusted into this concept of chiropractic being this lifestyle thing. But it didn't make sense to me. Like I didn't understand it. I didn't know anything about chiropractic. I'd never been, no one in my family had ever been. So I didn't know anything about it. It looked a little voodoo-ish to me. And so through a series of events, God just got a hold of me and said, this is where you're going to be. And I realized very quickly
shaking.
Yeah. I realized very quickly as a 21-year-old that I didn't have to have a DC after my name to change the world through chiropractic. My initial entry into the profession, I was like what most staff people are, and we're just, an ancillary part of the clinic. And yes, we serve an important role, and our doctors would tell us how important we are. They couldn't do it without us, but you still subset yourself to believe that we're limited. We have a ceiling in our capacity to really influence patients and or the public about chiropractic because we're not the chiropractor. And so I fell right into that lane, right? Because we're kind of put there from the ego of the doctor or from, being called CAs, chiropractic assistants. And so there's this label
in the title. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, that's where I put myself, but I had an experience with a patient and I realized immediately that the world didn't see me that way. As long as I knew what I was talking about and I was willing to talk about it, then the world would see me just as viable as they saw my doctor. And in a lot of cases, they're going to see me even stronger because I'm not a chiropractor. So I'm not boasting about myself. It's that third-party endorsement that every company is dying to look for, right? That's why we hire celebrities to wear our brand, because that's that third-party endorsement. Well, if Michael Jordan's doing it, I want to do it, right? So I started realizing very quickly that I had an ability to impact the world around me in a new and different way. And so I just started telling the story of chiropractic, but my issue was no one could answer my questions. Like I couldn't understand why the adjustment did what it did. Like I get migraines, I get back pain, I get, the neck pain, all that stuff. That's pretty standard, right? That's very mechanical and mechanistic, and that we can draw conclusions to. But what about this patient who has struggled getting pregnant, and all of a sudden we start adjusting them and now they're able to conceive? Or the experience I had with a patient was a 74-year-old that had issues with incontinence for 20 years, tried everything, nothing worked. He got adjusted over a week and a half and that went away. Like no one could explain how that actually is a side effect. All I kept hearing was it works.
It works.
Like, just trust the adjustment. It works. Trust the adjustment.
I just want to give our audience a little bit of context. So you weren't just a CA doing clinical work. You were actually meeting with patients, consulting them, doing report of findings. Like, as you can tell, Bharon is you're a people person. So So you lead with passion in your heart, and that's very clear to see. And thank you for that. So can you give us that, like, we got time?
Yeah.
I love that story of what happened with that patient that
Yeah,
really.
absolutely. Yeah. So my job was a PRCA. That's what I was hired into. In the David Singer world of consulting, you had one person that was your outside marketer, but they also came in and pretty much were your patient advocate. So my job was, when the patient came in, I did the consultation, I did prep for the exam, I did the x-rays, and then I did the report of findings. My doctor only examined and adjusted,
Wow.
partially because he was an amazing adjuster, but he couldn't say his name without confusing himself. Like, he just was not a communicator. Like, love him. Still to this day, one of the best adjusters that I have ever experienced. But like, I'm like, dude, let me talk, because that's just not your thing. And so in our clinic, we were an amazing team once I got, I got the big idea. But at any rate, so this particular patient, his name was Jim. His wife loved our chiropractor, absolutely loved our chiropractor. She's the kind of Medicare patient that we had to tell, you can't come in every day, Marge. Like, you've got to follow the doctor's plan. But she would come in every day if we'd let her. So Jim came in with his arms folded. He was just, you could tell he didn't want to be there. And I'm like, all right, Jim, what's going on? Tell me why you're here. He's like, well, I'm here to shut my wife up. And I'm like, all right, that's really not part of our job description, but let's see what we can do.
Yeah.
And he's like, so he went into this. He's like, I'm 70, I think 73, 74 years old. And I'm in pain. I'm a farmer. I have arthritis. I just have pain. But my wife keeps telling me that I'm not allowed to complain anymore unless I come in and see Dr. Z. And I was like, all right, well, here's the deal. Give me 2 weeks. If at the end of 2 weeks, you don't feel like this was any benefit, then I will help you shut your wife up. And he's like, all right, fair enough. So I move on. I closed, right? That was my job. I was the closer. I was the person to get the patient committed. So as far as I was concerned, I got this guy committed for 2 weeks. Now it was up to my doc. I was on to the next patient. 2 weeks later, the patient came in, or the front desk came and said, hey, Bharon, Jim wants to meet with you. I was like, oh yeah, it's been about 2 weeks. So he probably wants me to talk to his wife. So I bring Jim back to my office. I'm like, all right, Jim, it's been 2 weeks. How we doing? And this time he wasn't arms folded. He wasn't shut off, but he was very somber. And so I'm sitting in there. Mind you, I'm 21 years old. I grew up never really seeing a man cry. I'm just, my dad was a military guy. And so I wasn't prepared for the encounter I was about to have, which is what God always does. He equips the called. He doesn't call the equipped. And so I'm sitting in the office. I'm like, all right, Jim, how we doing?
You'd say that equips the call. He doesn't call the equipped.
Yeah. God equips the called. He does not call the equipped.
Right on. Thank you.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that one gets.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite quotes. It reminds me that even if I don't feel I'm ready, if the opportunity's there, I got to take it and I have to trust. And 9 times out of 10, I'm able to knock it out of the park. And that's where I start having faith that this isn't me doing it. It's him through me, because I have no business. Like I don't even have a bachelor's degree. Like I am not, like, I've done everything I've done and I don't even have a bachelor's degree. I'm a passionate person that fell in love with the profession, using my natural skill sets, and I'm not afraid to make a mistake. That's kind of when people ask me, how did you get where you are? I'm like, I'm not afraid to fail. And I love what I do. And the rest,
keep getting back up.
The rest is just, learning from mistakes and moving on. So anyway, so Jim's in the office, and he's like, well, I'm doing a little bit better, but that's not why I want to talk to you. I'm like, all right, what's up? Now he kind of starts weeping a little bit, and I'm on my heels. Like, I'm like, I don't know what's going on at this moment. I'm like, Jim, what's going on? He's like, well, I didn't tell you this when I came in, but I've had an issue, he used other language, but wetting myself for about the last 20 years, to the point that I won't leave my house for very long periods of time. We definitely don't go on vacation. I don't take my wife out on dates because I refuse to wear a diaper, and I'm afraid I'm going to piss myself. And so I'm sitting there like, whoa, TMI, like, I don't know why you're telling me this information. Now, mind you, I'm 3 months into this job of a profession I don't understand. I have a lot of questions myself. And so again, God's timing is perfect, because all these things are in my head as Jim's talking to me. And then he looks at me and he goes, but I want to let you know, since I've been coming here, I don't have that problem anymore. And then he really starts crying, and he goes, thank you so much for giving me my life back. Wow. I actually took my wife on a date last night for the first time in 20 years. And I feel like now I can move forward. So I am floored. Like, I'm crying because it seemed like the right thing to do. Yeah. And so I finish it up with Jim, give him a hug and say, I'm so glad. He's like, sign me up for more. And so he leaves my office and I'm floored. Like I can't process what just happened. Because at this time, I wasn't even getting adjusted because I didn't really believe what we did. It didn't make sense to me. My job was to close people. That's what I did. I went home, went about my business, most of the time mocking the patients and our doctor a little bit because it's just so foreign to me. How can what seems so minuscule, cracking a bone from a layperson's perspective, do what I just experienced with Jim? Like, how is that possible? And so two things hit me in that moment, which literally are why I do what I do today. The first, again, is that what I said earlier, that he thanked me. Come to find out, he didn't say any of this to my doctor. Like he didn't have this same encounter with my chiro. At the end of the day, I asked Dr. Z, I was like, hey, how'd it go with Jim today? He's like, fine. He seems to be doing better. I'm like, he didn't talk to you? So I progressed to tell him the story. He's like, oh my gosh, no, that's amazing. And I'm sitting there like, well, what in the heck? Why is he thanking me and not my doctor? Right? This is so crazy. But so in that moment, God just struck me. And that's where I realized I don't have to be the chiropractor to really have an impact.
It was your ability to have rapport and connection with this guy.
Yeah. I just created a space. Right. And the second thing I learned, which is really kind of my niche, is I had to understand this thing chiropractic. Like I couldn't be a part of something that was that powerful and me not know about it. Like if it could do that to Jim, what could it do to me? What could it do to my newborn kids that I had at the time? Yeah. Like my mind just started going crazy. Like, wait a minute, what is this that I'm a part of? And I couldn't get answers from Singer. I couldn't get answers from my doctor. And so I hate not knowing things. I'm not an overly educated guy, but I'm streetwise. Like I'm not going to be the dumbest guy in the conversation. It just isn't going to happen. I got to be able to talk my way out of something.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm kind of like Goodwill Hunting. I'm just the guy that's in the wing mopping the floor, but I'm learning and studying and making sure I know what I'm doing. So I started sending myself to chiropractic events. I was going to technique classes. I was going to philosophy. Dan Murphy, I started taking all of his class to understand neuroanatomy. I started going to, I got introduced to this thing called neurologically based chiropractic with Dr. Barwell, Heidi Havik, and I just started studying. And I had to understand why what we were doing was actually having the impact that it was, because there was a world around me, and I was in that world that had not a damn clue what it was we did in our office. And to me, that was a crime. And then when I started seeing the lies of allopathic medicine and how all that started and how the business economic engine of allopathic medicine was created, I'm like, holy crap, the world has been bamboozled. And this is crazy. And something that's relatively inexpensive. It seems expensive to a patient because they're used to paying nothing when they do the allopathic model. But in comparison to spend from the national GDP, it's like nothing, right? Like this is literally the most economic and effective method to change our world for health. And so I run my mouth. I'm a big mouth guy. I don't mind confrontation. So every time I learn something new, I had to go and tell somebody. And so long story short, we grew our clinics like crazy. We went from about 80 visits a week to 300 visits a week in 2.5 months. I opened clinics with the guy that owned the clinic. I went from that to consulting. I started consulting around the country for a number of years. Then I was offered the position of the executive director of the Ohio State Chiropractic Association. That was kind of my first real look at the underbelly of chiropractic. Like by this time I'd been in the profession.
The political,
go ahead.
Like getting involved in the political landscape.
Yeah. Like really what makes the profession of chiropractic tick, not like what doctors do in their clinic, but why we have the laws we have, why we struggle with some of the issues we struggle with, all that stuff. I got to, it's easy to be a bleacher, quarterback where you're sitting there, oh, why'd you miss that? Why are you doing that? And in chiropractic, it's so easy to blame the associations and be like, this is crap, man. This law just passed. Why didn't you guys, I pay my dues. Why aren't you, so I took the job really because, my dad taught me a long time ago that you can't bitch unless you're willing to get your hands dirty. And if you're willing to get your hands dirty, then you have the right to say whatever you want to say. But if you're not going to get your hands dirty, then you have zero business to talk. So I just kind of grew up with that mentality that I need to make sure that I'm willing to be a part of it before I start whining about it. And so I took the job. I was doing very well in consulting. And I loved that job. It gave me a lot of freedom. I was making really good money, but I just felt like this profession that I loved was going backwards. Like, how could we be as amazing as we are? And doctors are going out of business because they can't pay the bills. Like, it was just a conundrum to me. Here I'm having
or
all
defend
of this.
themselves appropriately either.
Yeah, they don't know the insurance world. They really don't know how to communicate to patients. They just knew their job. And when you look at it, and this is part of where the world, I don't think, gives chiropractic credit. We're the only healthcare profession where the doctors literally have zero training in what 60% of their job is. Right? Like, an average chiropractor does not actually ever hold a real job. They may be servers or, a caddy or bartend or whatever, but I mean a legitimate job where they're learning skills, because they go right from high school to undergrad, right from undergrad to grad. And then they're right into owning a business, because most chiropractors can't join medical groups, can't join hospitals. They're not hiring them as medical directors and large employers, right? We pretty much either associate at someone's job, and 90% of the time we're learning what we don't ever want to do in the associateship. We're not really learning good life skills.
Right.
Right. Or we open our own, and then we're so far in debt, we're not making decisions based on our belief system. We're making decisions out of survival. I've got business expenses. I've got school loans. I've got,
so it's, and the business acumen is a totally different,
absolutely.
in the world of running and operating a business successfully. Yeah, it's completely.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to be HR, you've got to be accounting, you've got to be marketing, you've got to be the doctor, you've got to be, and you're really only skilled in the doctor part. Like, the rest of it,
maybe make some time to personal life, just a little bit.
Well, that's optional, right? I mean, that's if there's anything left, right?
Yeah.
So I'm seeing all this stuff in my consulting time, right? And so I'm like, I can't tell you how many marriage counseling sessions I had trying to bring balance, because chiropractors would work 7 to 7 days a week, because they thought that's what their patients needed in order to provide. And their overhead is out of control. Just all of, and you guys see that in Genesis, because you get into their guts when you are doing the billing and stuff. And so it was in the 90s, it was such a scary time, because managed care had just hit. And so these guys were getting slapped upside, because all of a sudden every claim they were submitting, now they're getting denied, and they don't know why. And because the code set had changed, and because there was this new thing of in network and what all that meant. And so that was kind of my growing up in the consulting era, was compliance and Medicare and coding and figuring out the insurance game. And it was just crazy. So when I had the opportunity to run the association, one, it got me off the road, which was important for where I was at with my family. And two, it gave me a new view of the profession. And I will be honest, I learned a lot. I was very bad at it in the beginning, because I'd never known how to work with a board, and I didn't know that I was supposed to ask for permission to do things.
You really had no, like, you hadn't had political positions in the past. It was just
nothing.
You had nothing to compare it to.
Nothing. I was 31 years old.
Your genesis into politics.
Yeah. I mean, I was a business guy. I was a street guy. I was a hustler. Yeah. And so then you put me into a political landscape where I have this board of 20 people, with all due respect, amazing humans, but none of them know what the hell they're doing as a board position. So they're just coming in with their personalities, and I'm like navigating, and I'm used to just making my own decisions. Like, I'd been working for myself for the previous 15 years. And so I made a lot of mistakes in the beginning, but I learned very quickly. I often don't make the same mistake, but I will make just about every mistake you can make. And we just turned things around, and it was amazing. Like, we did things in Ohio that no state had ever done before. In my 6-year tenure, we kind of redefined what an association's job was. Most state associations, and this is not a knock on them, so if anyone's watching this, I'm not pointing a finger. I work with state associations. I love them. They're doing the best they can. But the mindset of most state associations is our job is to lobby, provide continuing education, and then fight whenever we're attacked. Like, that's the mindset. That's where most of the economics go.
Well, it's interesting, because there's some dissonance there. Just like we see that it's reactive versus proactive. Yeah,
absolutely correct. And most of the time they don't pay their staff what they should. So they're not getting the quality of staff that they really should have to do what the membership really wants them to do. Right. We know what the membership wants. They want to see more people, and they want to get paid better for it.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, that if you could do that as an organization,
you win.
You would have every chiropractor on the planet get me seeing more people and get me paid better for it. And I'll do just about anything, right? We know they do just about anything. Watch them in a fucking vendor hall, excuse my French. They'll buy anything if they think it's going to make them more money or get them to see more people, right? So
of course.
So I took that.
They're also always busy looking.
Yeah, it's just crazy to me watching how people throw money at problems. And
yes.
So I went to my board, and we said, I don't want to do that. I want to They want someone they can believe in. One of the big things that our profession is lacking in this current time is inspirational leadership. We don't have it. We don't have the Sigafus. We don't have, the Reggie Golds. We don't have the BJ Palmers. We don't have the Sid Williams of today. We're very, very segmented. We're very much picking a side. We're very much, I don't want to deal with all the noise. I'm just going to
meaning subluxation based, not subluxation based,
X-ray, mechanism versus vitalism, but even more than that, people are just tired of the fight. So they're not a part of anything. And here's the statistic that'll prove my point. So in the United States, we have two national associations. We have the ACA, the American Chiropractic Association, and the ICA, the International Chiropractic Association. Typically, the ICA is your mechanist, or ACA is your mechanist people. They're the ones that are looking for integration into healthcare, and they're going to be more pain, insurance, and all that stuff. ICA has typically been your more vitalistic, your more subluxationist, your lifestyle care, cash practice, that kind of stuff, right? So that, and I'm not saying that's it. They both do great things. I'm not knocking. I'm just telling you that's the perception in the profession.
Yeah.
And so what happens is, historically, it appears, not saying it's true, but this is the perception, right? Which perception is reality, that those two organizations really exist to fight each other. They don't exist to really move the profession forward, because if that's the case, we're 128 years old this year, and we still have the same issues today than we did 25 years ago. So if this model was going to work, one, we would see more fruitful effort, right? We would have more things to be able to look back and be like, oh, it's great work. But here's the statistic that rules it all. So we have about 80,000 licensed chiropractors in the United States, give and take. Combined membership of both organizations is less than 10,000.
Wow.
So if that doesn't tell you the climate of our profession, and again, I'm not knocking either organization.
Well, but there's no unity. It feels like that.
There's no trust.
Yeah, no trust.
There's no trust. And people in our profession do not trust either organization. Either they made the stance that until they get their stuff together, I'm not joining either. Or they're like, I don't think either one of them are capable of doing it. Or they're like, I'm just keeping my toys and I'm staying home. Either way, that is a death statistic of a trade.
Yeah.
You look at any other trade, PTs, OTs, MDs, hospitals, you have your 50, 60% membership, right? You've always got, no one's like heavy high, because we're humans and there are non-joiners, but less than 10%. I mean, that's insane. I mean, even if we could get to 40%, how much of a difference?
It's combined too. So,
combined, correct.
Please, if we can, I just want to bring your energy into so now what is your solution? Where have you brought us?
So my time in the association, I learned very quickly that the model that we do with our associations is not capable of doing the work the profession wants. And here's why. It's, again, I'm not knocking them. I'm just saying we have to be honest with ourselves today. We, as a group of people, my team and my board, we were doing amazing things in Ohio, things that had never been done before. We got very successful. We went from 300 members to right around 1,200 members. Nice. Our budget, grew almost 3,000%, or 300%, whatever the math is. It went from, my budget when I started was about 200,000. When I left, it was 1.6. So awesome. It was a large growth.
I'll let somebody. We'll have Genesis run those statistics.
Yeah. You guys do the numbers. I'm not very good with numbers. So we were doing great. We were gaining power. We were having influence in our legislature. We got our governor to sign the very first ever executive order mandating that, as a decree throughout Ohio, patients had to fail conservative care, including chiropractic adjustments. That was the terminology, chiropractic adjustments, before they could get an opioid. We were doing amazing things, and we had a reputation. So as our profession does, we had a faction that all of a sudden saw our strength and said, okay, now's the time to go after prescription rights. And I would refuse to do it. I said, as long as I'm sitting here, I'm not going after that. Not because of a philosophical thing, but it ruins everything we've done to go in and now ask for us to be able to prescribe drugs. It's an oxymoronic conversation with everything we just did with opioids. We're the non-drug, and now I'm going to turn around and say, I want drugs. So it was just a tactical thing. I have my own personal beliefs, but that's not my job. My job was to look tactically for the profession in Ohio. And so I said, absolutely not. I'm not doing it. I said, you're going to have to fire me before that happens. So they ran a coup, took over my board, made my life a living hell. And I'm sitting there going, are you kidding me? Like, we were doing so good, so many positive things. And now I hate my job because I spend most of my time trying to fight off my own members because they want me to do something that's not in their best interest. And I said, I don't want to do this. And then I'm sitting back there, I'm very frustrated. I'm looking, man, this is what must happen within the ACA. This is what happened within the ICA. I had enough friends at that time. I was on a couple of national boards, and I'm watching this happen. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is why we can't move, because of the infrastructure of these organizations, because they're membership driven, and because you have to turn over leadership so quick that you cannot sustain a path, because everyone's trying to run people to get their agenda done. And then, then you just have your people that are like, I don't want the fight. So they're just sitting there and not really exerting their authority as a board member. And so we just go to hell, and the loudest voice ends up winning. So I'm like, I'm done. And at that exact same time, I was introduced to someone shared a quote with me from Buckminster Fuller that says that you cannot change an existing reality by fighting it. You need to create a new model that makes the old model obsolete. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm like, that's it. I'm tired of fighting. I've got, almost at that time, like 18 years of fighting. Like, I was on the board of a number of things. I'm nationally known. I'm traveling and speaking, and I'm fighting, at one point I was trying to bring the ACA and ICA together and be like, we've got to be one. We've got to organize. And I'm fighting. And I keep hitting walls and personalities. And I'm like, this is exhausting. And then that quote hit me. I'm like, screw it. I'm done. I'm done trying to fix what it currently exists. I'm going to create something new.
New model.
And so I left Ohio. We created an organization called One Chiropractic, which is my nonprofit that I still have. And our purpose at that point, we kind of made our why statement was to make chiropractic the number one healthcare choice in the world. And we really spent some time on that phrase, because if you listen to it, there's a number of key factors. Number one, we want to make it the number one healthcare choice. Choice. That means the person understands us enough to pick us over other types of options and modalities that are available to them, which means we've done a really good job of explaining who we are as a profession. We've made it available. There's access. Instead of
unethically persuading them for
correct. Like, we could legislate and force things.
Or monetarily, persuade them through marketing and advertising. And of course.
Correct. So that was kind of our carrot, our why statement. And then we were looking at, okay, now what is the path we think to get there? And so we started off, and if I'm being honest, we had a great vision, but we had no real structure at the time. I just was mad, and I wanted to do something different, and I wanted to fix the problems that I felt the profession had. One of those was that most state associations were not strong. They were barely making it. They didn't have full-time, staff, because they didn't have a budget. None of them were passing, I shouldn't say none of them. Quite a few of them were not passing significant legislation, but they were putting all their money into their lobbyists. Their membership was horrible. And this is still, I haven't checked the stats in a couple of years, but as of a couple of years ago, we only had 7 states that had more than 50% membership. Like, I mean, again, it's the same number as national, right? It's just horrible.
Non-involvement.
No. And so one, economically, that restricts the association from doing what the membership wants them to do. But 2, nobody's on the same page. Everyone's kind of doing their own thing. Really, if you do the stat and you want to know the scary thing, maybe not scary, but it's telling, more people, our profession belong to more consulting groups than we do actual organizations fighting for the profession. And so instead of having associations where we're tight and we're organized and we're communicating and there's good informational structure, we have pockets of consulting groups that love each other, and that's their tribe. And so it's spread. And now those groups are very philosophically defined because they've been attracted by that leadership of that particular consulting group. Nothing wrong with any of that. But again, it creates more segmentation.
Right.
It doesn't create this organization. It creates segmentation. And so, that was my frustration. I'm like, we've got to find something that we can all agree on. It's kind of like religion. If you really break it down, we agree on 90%. It's that 10% we spend all of our time fighting about. And what happens when we just agree on the 90 and say, we're going to not talk about the 10, we're just going to do what we both agree on the 90? how much stronger could the church be in our world, right? And how much stronger could our profession be if I could get 90% of our profession to agree on one thing? And so as we're searching for this one thing, there was a series of other events that had happened, but in 2021, February of 2021, I just lost my mentor. He helped me start One Chiropractic, Dr. Tom Clapp, an unbelievable human, one of my best friends. He just quickly, within a month and a half, died of COVID. And so I was just kind of a rudderless mess. I still had One Chiro. We had about 300 contributors. We were doing work. At that time, we were really working, and we still are, to get chiropractic into the military, which is a whole nother conversation. And, but I'm at this event, and where all amazing conversations happen with an adult beverage next to a pool. I have this conversation with Dr. Stephen Franson, and I don't know if many of you guys know who he is, but he is the principal for the Remarkable Practice.
Big connection with Genesis Nation.
Yeah, he loves you guys. I mean, he's just an amazing human. We knew of each other. He actually was a contributor to One Chiropractic at the time, but we just never had crossed paths. We never really had an in-depth conversation. So I'm sitting next to him at an event at the pool, and he's like, all right, tell me about you. Like, I can't figure you out, which is what I get most of the time. Like, you're not a chiropractor, but you're everywhere. Like, tell me your story. So I go through my story, and he's just sitting there and slowly gets a bigger and bigger grin. And as I tell him my experience with Ohio and how I got into One Chiropractic, he's like, okay, enough. He's like, dude, you're not going to believe this. But so he goes into this story of a vision that he had 6 years prior about something that our profession really needed, but he couldn't find the person to do it. He didn't have the time and energy, and it wasn't his skill set. But he's like, we need a special forces type defense system for chiropractic, that anytime we are under attack anywhere in the world, this team deploys to protect the rights of practicing chiropractors. He goes, I'm calling it the Chiropractic Defense Council, the good CDC. And I'm sitting there, and he's explaining, he goes, just imagine. So at this time, this is February of 21, pre-vaccine, just coming out of COVID, right? And we're dealing with x-ray issues in British Columbia. They had taken away chiropractors' rights to do routine x-rays. Yeah. We're dealing with pediatric issues in Australia, where they're saying chiropractors shouldn't be treating children under the age 6. We just got done with a massive fight with the Texas Medical Association, where they were coming after chiropractors' ability to use the term neurological, which would have taken away their ability to do an exam and diagnose. And it was a long battle. The Texas Medical Association Chiropractic Association did a great job defending. They ultimately won. We defeated the medical association, but it took a long time and a lot of money. And he's like, right now, whenever our profession is under crisis, it's a small group of people that organize, takes them too long to raise the money. They're oftentimes not hiring the right attorneys because that's not their skill set. And we miss opportunities. And I'm like, you're not wrong. Like that makes total sense. He's like, imagine though, if we already had attorneys that understood chiropractic, we already had lobbyists that understood chiropractic, PR firms, content experts, that we could, the minute something happens, bring them together, get the information, and immediately deploy action. I'm like, dude, that'd be amazing. He's like, we need to build that. And he's like, and you're the guy. And I'm just sitting there like, I am the guy. You are 100% right. Everything I've done to this point, I have all the relationships. I have the organization.
Get those body tingles like you immediately.
Yeah, it really was. Because mind you, I was kind of rudderless at that moment. Like, I was looking, what is my next thing? I don't have Tom. I don't have my guy that was my sounding wall. Yeah. Like, what is my next thing? I knew I had the ability. I had the relationships. I have the gift of gab. I'm a good operator. I can take concept and put it into application. But I wasn't always the big idea guy. Well, that wasn't my thing.
The collaborative partners, that's how you operate.
Correct.
Yeah.
So in February of 21, I started building the Chiropractic Defense Council, not knowing what was coming in August of that year. Yeah. We just started, looking at this big vision and said, okay. And I started, talking with some of my relationships throughout the profession, pitching the idea. Everyone was like, that's incredible. Like, how would it work? I'm like, I don't know. I'm just making sure people think it's a good idea. And so I started interviewing attorneys and getting some of the best of the best. I started interviewing lobbyists. And so I'm doing all this stuff. And in July of 2021, we were ready to launch it to the profession. And we were going to do a virtual summit calling Chiropractic in a post-COVID world. And we were going to talk about the vulnerabilities. We knew something was coming with vaccines. We could tell. No one just knew. No one could imagine what actually happened, but we knew. We just came out of all those shutdowns. We knew the government was going to really enforce, and we were like, and in certain states, chiropractic got hammered. Like Kentucky, they weren't considered essential, so they got shut down for almost 3 months. And so, but there was nothing. The state associations were not in a position to fight that. Like they couldn't do it because of their relationships on other issues. They would have burnt every bridge they ever had within the government if they would have, landed on that sword. But at the end of the day, it was necessary because their doctors couldn't work. So it was this conundrum. So this reality that the profession needed an organization that could take the arrows, that could be the bulldog, that could be the bad cop, why the associations can be the good cop, to create this movement that the profession needed. It was all starting to form, right? So we built this whole thing, getting ready to launch it in July. We launched it in July just as a soft launch, letting people know who we are, what we're doing, had our website, had our logo, had all of that, expecting to slowly grow. Expecting that it's going to take a while for the profession to get it. Our profession does not like to organize. It's going to take them a while. This has never been done before in the history of our profession. It's really not been done in any other profession, come to find out. I was trying to copy this somewhere else, but no other profession has what we have.
Unified defense.
Yeah. And so, so then in August was the first mandate in California that chiropractors had to be vaccinated in order to continue to practice. And so we just launched, like we just launched in July. And then now all of a sudden, so it started in California, then it went to Oregon, then it went to Washington, then it went to Illinois, then it went to Rhode Island, then it went to Colorado. And so all of these states, all of a sudden, so we just went into hyper mode, and I just started hiring attorneys, and we got the best attorneys. We actually were sharing attorneys with frontline doctors and all these other groups. Like we had $750 an hour attorneys. Like we had some of the best attorneys you could get. We developed a phenomenal model. Within a week, we had resources to every doctor in those states, specific to their state, where they could stand their ground, continue to practice, and not have to vaccinate. And I was very proud of that reaction time. So we got a big name for ourselves very quick as being the one group that was standing up saying, absolutely not. Associations didn't know what to do, again, because of that political battle. So we luckily worked very well with all of the state associations in these different states, letting them know what we're doing. We're not treading on your turf. We want to be the bad guy. And so we had a great relationship with these associations because we could do the dirty work that they didn't have to do, but their members were still being taken care of. And so we grew very quickly. We went from 300 contributors. Within 4 months, we were at almost 4,000 contributors.
Wow.
And our economic system is very simple. All we ask for is $33 a month. That's it, based on the 33 principles. Don't want, what's that?
I said it's pretty damn simple.
Yeah, it's $33 a month. And I did that for a couple of reasons. One, I don't want to compete with other organizations. If I'm asking for hundreds of dollars a month, then you have to decide, do I support my state association or the CDC? Do I support my national association or the CDC? Do I support the Foundation for Chiropractic Progress or the CDC? And I didn't want that. I wanted to be low enough that I'm not going to be a factor into why you make other decisions. The second thing is I wanted it small enough that you kind of forget about it because it's a reoccurring. Our whole business model was that every month we rebuild our coffers to be able to sustain these long fights, because the work that we do isn't like we're there for one battle and it's over. It's long.
Those lawsuits are long and drawn out.
Oh, they're years long, and they're expensive. I mean, you're talking $500,000 to $1 million for some of these things. And so, we thought through what our work would be, and we wanted to create an economic system. And the third reason we did it is we thought, if I can get a bunch of people to do a little bit, then I'm never held hostage by my contributors. If I went after big contributions like 25,000, 50,000, 100,000, I lose that person, it hurts a lot.
Yeah.
I can lose 100 contributors and I barely feel it, right? At $33. But I've got to have thousands and thousands of people in order to drive the revenue that I need to drive. So that was our theory. COVID ended up being the phenomenal action to grow us very quickly, to give us the resources to be able. We've already spent over $2.6 million in defensive chiropractic in 2 years.
Insane.
I mean, we're 710 and 0.
Just thank you. Now, as you say that number again? 710
cases and 0.
That's a pretty damn good.
Yeah.
I want like the winning pose for that.
Yeah.
That one right there. Come on, give it to us. So the CDC, Chiropractic Defense Council, is under One Chiropractic?
That is correct. So the CDC is not its own entity. It's a project underneath One Chiropractic. So kind of like a DBA, if you will.
Got it.
One Chiropractic is a 501c6 nonprofit. So we're not a foundation. We can't be because we do lobbying and legal work.
Okay.
But CDC is one of our projects. And then we have our military project, which is our goal is to get chiropractors as commissioned officers in the military here in the United States. It's a huge problem right now. Chiropractors cannot join the military to be a chiropractor.
Yeah, they have
active
to.
duty military. Active duty military have no benefit for chiropractic, not through TRICARE. They don't have access to it on base, most of them.
Yeah.
So we've been working for 3 years to fix that because it's just a ridiculous reality that we have.
Yeah.
And so
we're very underserved. I mean, like we need to be treating our military.
And some of the most in need with the work that they do.
That's what I'm saying. Like they need like just as much as they've got pain docs on the front line. Imagine like doing what these men and women are doing and coming back and getting adjusted and getting their bodies tuned up and their nervous system tuned up. Like, man, that's not just because I've met pain physicians in the military, right? So they're, people are going out, killing bad guys, coming back in, getting injected instead of getting, their bodies worked on, which would be awesome to have, you have all those resources available. So how can we support, Genesis?
So here's where I'm at right now. And I hate asking people for money. It is my least favorite thing in the world. I just love going and doing the work. But we have successfully proven to the profession that our model works. Like we're 3 years old now. We've got a lot of these war wounds. I mean, we've proven that our work.
I'm saying 700-0, man. Like that's proven enough.
So it's, and I didn't say this, but we're in 9 countries. So not all of those battles were US. Actually, most of them were in Australia and New Zealand, but they're still for chiropractic. And one of the things I'm trying to get the profession to understand. So we're fighting this X-ray issue in British Columbia. We've spent already probably $300,000 on this battle.
So just a quick patch up there. So they're trying to make it illegal for chiropractors.
Well, they already did. So the Chiropractic College, which is the equivalent of a licensing board, their regulatory body in British Columbia, Canada, passed 2.5 years ago a policy that says chiropractors cannot do x-rays, period, unless there's a significant orthopedic finding or a significant finding necessitating it. So gondroids, activator docs, CBP docs cannot just do x-rays like they would that their protocol requires.
Yeah.
Like it's a major issue. NUCA doctors, all the upper cervical people, they can't do them unless the patient presents with some significant finding that would necessitate it. So it's garbage and it massively affects. So if we lose that battle, so right now that's what's in the face. We're appealing it. We're trying to get the college to change it. We've got researchers involved. We have one of the best attorneys in Canada right now working on it. If we lose that, you can bet your money that's going to spread throughout all of Canada and then into the United States.
Of course. Yeah.
Hands down. So part of our strategy with the CDC is we have to attack these things where they start because they will spread. We have enemies. Allopathic medicine does not want us to succeed. We will destroy that economic engine that they have. We will literally destroy it. So if they can get a foothold that keeps us in a corner, you can bet damn well
they're going to
take advantage of it. So even though those 700 battles, probably 40 of them were in the United States, the rest were not in the United States, but it's because we've got to win in these other countries before it gets to us. Because if it gets to us here, it's going to be a lot more expensive. It's going to be a lot longer and a lot more dangerous.
Well, as you said, you just got to get right to its origination, like right starting before it spreads.
So we have a goal, and it's a very audacious goal. Right now, I'm right around 3,000 contributors. We've dropped a little bit because COVID went away. So a lot of people are like, hey, thanks, but we're out of here. I want 10,000 contributors. If I can get to 10,000, that gives us 2 things. One, the resources to really take on everything that's being presented to us. We've done a good job now of proving our business model, but now we have everyone coming at us saying, hey, can you guys do this? Can you do this? And I don't have the means. Like I don't have the resources to take on the bigger battles I would love to right now. And so I won't do it because I'm not going to strap the organization. We're already in serious battles in Canada because it's so bad there. We've got a big one going in Australia currently as well. And so I need the ability to continue to take on the issues that the profession needs, right? As these other organizations, state and national, realize we're not a threat to them because we're not. I don't want to do what they're doing. I want to help them. as they're starting to realize that, now they're coming to us saying, hey, by the way, could you? I'm like, we could, but I don't have the means, right? I need to grow. And I don't want to go after big contributions, because then I'm going to spend all my time fundraising. I don't want to do that.
I'm not going to ask you to ask our listeners for money. I'm going to ask our listeners, Genesis Nation, because, you know, we're all here. We're trying to help people leverage technology so they can be more successful, help more patients, build the chiropractic profession, so that we can, you know, and you're the tip of the spear, bro. So $33 a month, right? That's it. $33 a month.
You can go to defendchiropractic.org, defendchiropractic.org.
And we'll put all that stuff there. But really, it's, you know, I appreciate you not wanting to ask people for money, because you're literally at the tip of the spear fighting. So thank you for that. And your passion, your energy, your experience, your wisdom. I love your story, man. And it's it fires me up and gets me re-engaged. So if there's any, you know, if my voice can reach out to our listeners here and get the support we need to push us forward and make chiropractic the #1 health choice, then let's do it.
Well, I love it. And I appreciate the opportunity. You know, people ask me, so Bharon, why are you this passionate about it? One, just because I fell in love with chiropractic intellectually. I wasn't a patient with an experience. Just it's seared into my brain, just the power of this. But my daughter just literally yesterday got completely licensed in Ohio to start practicing. So she graduated from Sherman. She's now an Ohio licensed chiropractor and can practice. My son's headed to Life in September of this year. Like, I'm in. Like, this is not a job for me. This is, now I'm fighting for them, right, on top of everyone else, because the world, you know, the profession #1 currently doesn't deserve my kids. Like, I mean, the way we operate, like they're amazing humans, and they're going to be the world changers themselves. So I'm fighting to create a profession that they can be proud of. I know they're proud of their ability themselves to impact and the art of adjusting and all that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about waving your flag that we are an amazing profession. We operate well. We're efficient. We're doing everything we can to impact the world. And that they can't say that right now about the profession. And so that's my motivation is to really create a profession that the next generation of chiropractors, which they're amazing, by the way. I know we dog our millennials and all of that, but some of these students coming out of school right now are just phenomenal. And I want to make sure there's an environment for them. And at the end of the day, I do believe if chiropractic is properly integrated into the healthcare system, we can change the entire economic structure of our world, and we can actually change how we interact with each other as humans.
And it would be the health of our world, the relationships we create, all of it. Like, you know, I mean, from the microscopic level of us hugging our patients more than, you know, more than like, hey, can I have your copay, please? Right. It's dude, bro, all of it, man. Thank you so much. Like, I'm honored to, you know, be helping and collaborating together through Genesis and just building this relationship, man. So for those of you out there listening, please check this, you know, we'll put the links in below, but, you know, get your contribution so this man can help us continue to push forward.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you all. God bless you. Thank you for loving what I love. And we're going to keep fighting for you guys. Keep doing your thing.
Right on. Thank you.